The day I went to find Wade Shen, a light drizzle was falling from the sky. Weak and dizzy from hunger, I was easily pushed aside by the guard and fell into the muddy water. At that very moment, Wade Shen arrived before me with Thea Chen and her child. Wade Shen frowned, looking down at me, and called out, "Lola," but made no move to help me up. His gaze was complex, a mix of pity and disdain. Yet not long ago, he had once said to me with heartfelt joy, "Lola, you're so capable, with you by my side. Even hardship tastes sweet." But things gradually changed. His eyes began lingering on Thea Chen, never sparing me another glance, even toward our two children. He grew increasingly impatient. She was busy making arrangements to bring Thea Chen's son over. My consciousness blurred and then gradually gathered again. The mud all over me made me uncomfortable, but I didn't have the strength to get up. Thea Chen's son let out a strange laugh. "Lola, son, you low-class woman from the countryside. You stink all over." Thea quickly covered his mouth. Kids say the darndest things. His shifty eyes couldn't conceal his smugness. I reluctantly glanced at the three of them, all dressed in matching wool coats, looking quite presentable, like a family of three, perfectly uniform. The mother and child both had rosy complexions, clearly well taken care of. It turns out that after the cuckoo took over the magpie's nest, this is how they talked about me behind my back. The positions of both sides have undergone a complete reversal. Actually, when Thea Chen first came to my home, she wasn't much better off than I am now. At that time, her son wasn't with her but was being fostered at her mother's place, and I heard they often didn't know where their next meal would come from. Thea Chen could barely take care of herself, let alone constantly bring her son along. Unlike now, when both mother and son are plump, radiant, and basking in success. They could hardly wait to parade their triumph. I glanced at my son's thin, frail frame beside me, struggling in vain to pull me up. After several failed attempts, he was drenched in sweat. My heart instantly burned with rage, and anger surged like a storm. It dawned on me belatedly that Wade Shen had already brought Thea Chen's son over for a reunion this early. In my previous life, I didn't come looking this soon, so naturally, I knew nothing about it. Back then, I was still working diligently in the county town to support the family, foolishly exerting myself to serve my mother-in-law and desperately taking care of my two children. After the family planning policy was implemented, I had an abortion but failed to recover properly, leaving me with a body full of ailments. Wade Shen vanished without a trace, and I didn't dare to ask too much. Amid financial difficulties, I was still worried about whether something had happened to him. Little did I know. He had rebuilt his love nest, cozying up with his lover. I struggled to get up and said to the mother and child, "The child doesn't know me," yet he called out my name and called me a stinky country woman. That must have been taught by the adults. Thea Chen covered her mouth in shock, her slender fingers as white as jade. In an instant, her eyes welled up with grievance, tears threatening to fall. Wade Shen scolded me sharply, "Lola, son, why are you picking on a child? He's been bullied before and is naturally timid. Don't scare him." After speaking, Wade Shen picked up the little boy, who affectionately called out to him, "Daddy." At these words, the son beside them was on the verge of tears. Wade Shen also seemed slightly flustered, because he has no father. He was humiliated and frightened, often having nightmares. "That's why I let him call me that. Stop making excuses." My voice could freeze ice. "Lola, son." My voice was cold and deep as I said, "Our son is right here. After being apart for so long, I don't see you hugging him. You left home 6 months ago. I was already pregnant when you left, and by now, I should be showing, but my belly is flat. Where's the baby? You didn't even notice." Passers-by began to take notice of us. Wade Shen looked flustered and tried to change the subject. "Lola, son, why aren't you at home taking care of your mother? What are you doing here? Catching an affair?" I said sharply. Wade Shen reacted instinctively and slapped me across the face. My ears rang, and stars danced before my eyes. I don't know where the strength came from, but I managed to stand firm, and my son supported me with his small frame. I jumped up and slapped Wade Shen back in return. Wade Shen's hair immediately became disheveled. No longer looking refined and elegant, the commotion grew so large that passers-by began to gather. Wade Shen's pretentious face showed panic. "All right, Lola, It was too rushed today. I admit it was my fault. You're covered in mud now. Let me take you to the guest house to clean up, I sneered. Won't you take me home to clean up? Wade Shen looked embarrassed, while Thea Chen's expression darkened, as if I were trying to invade their private territory. Wade Shen pointed to a building by the roadside and said reassuringly, "This is the guest house of our exploration bureau, with hot water available 24 hours a day. You can stay here first and take a good shower. If you go home now, you'll have to heat the water first, and it's still a bit of a walk. It's better to stay here for now." During working hours, the residential area for families was not crowded with pedestrians. Now wasn't the best time for me to make a scene. Staying at the guest house first wasn't a bad idea. I gave myself and my son a bath and bought some food. Watching my son wolf down his food, my heart grew heavy. Suddenly, tears fell from Yizhuang's eyes as he said to me, "Mom, this burrito is so delicious, it's a shame my sister can't have any." My expression turned fierce, but my words remained gentle. "It'll be over soon. You'll both have a good life from now on." I was waiting for the end of the workday in the residential area, and it was the gate guard who had just fetched Wade Shen. This time, I'm going to corner him at the entrance of the Exploration Bureau's residential compound and expose his misdeeds to the passing crowd. After that, I'll go find their leaders. Just as my emotions were surging, suddenly the loudspeaker blared across the entire residential area. "The new commendation ceremony is about to begin. All relevant personnel, please take your seats promptly. Leaders, please come to the stage." My heart stirred, and I grabbed my son Yizhuang. Heading outside with increasingly hurried steps toward the source of the sound, at the sports field of the Exploration Bureau, a stage had been set up in the center of the stands. After a speech by the leadership, the award recipients began taking the stage to give their acceptance speeches. Wade Shen was the third to appear. He had clearly dressed up meticulously, and his already refined and handsome appearance now looked even more polished and presentable. I sneered inwardly. How I'd love to drag him down into the mud too. Wade Shen gave a work summary and then began expressing gratitude. "Thank you for the leadership's recognition of me. I will strive to improve. I also want to thank Comrade Thea Chen for her support in my work. Without her, I wouldn't have achieved what I have today. Thank you to the Bureau leadership for helping arrange work for Thea Chen, resolving my worries at home." The crowd below teased, "When's the wedding?" Then came another kind smile. A hint of embarrassment appeared on Wade Shen's face. Thea Chen, who was just a step away from him in the audience, walked onto the stage and said gracefully, "Engineer Shen and I are just comrades. I am the widow of his student. Engineer Shen simply wanted to help me. Once I can stand on my own, he will bring his beloved over." The audience suddenly fell silent for a few seconds. I slowly walked onto the stage and said to the despicable couple, "Are you sure he would bring me over?" Thea Chen looked at me in astonishment. "Sister-in-law." Then, facing the audience, I spoke slowly. "I am the wife of Engineer Shen she mentioned, the one he would bring over once she could stand on her own." Amidst everyone's astonished gazes, I remained composed. "Let everyone judge for me. Do you think Engineer Shen would come to pick me up? He's been away from home for 6 months, not a single letter written, not a single penny sent. When he left, I was pregnant, and he showed no concern whatsoever. When he left, my mother-in-law was ill, yet he paid no attention, leaving the sick old lady to me alone." Wade Shen finally realized belatedly and retorted, "Before leaving, I left you $30. Ha, I was waiting for him to say that." I continued to explain methodically, "Comrades from the families of the Exploration Bureau. Our bureau provides field allowances, family housing in various locations, and a canteen. I ask you, which family has only $30 to their name?" Our family originally had several $100s in savings, along with plenty of food ration coupons. A year ago, Thea Chen came to our home, and in less than half a year, all those savings were spent on her. They claimed it was to support struggling families. Yet everything they used, food, clothing, and daily necessities, was of the finest quality. Later, when the family ran out of money, Wade Shen was still fixated on the cost of milk and eggs for the children. Wade Shen finally flew into a rage out of humiliation. "You're lying, you're slandering me." He stepped forward to pull me away, but it was already too late. The best moment had passed a step earlier. He underestimated me. So he missed a golden opportunity, I continued. Which part of what I said was false? There are postal records for sending letters and money. Bring them here, and I'll wait for you right here. You said I was eyeing the child's milk money, with our son right beside us. Do you think a mother like me would lie right to his face? Besides, ever since Thea Chen came to our home, we've been ordering double the amount of milk, and look at Thea Chen's clothes, shoes, and watch, all newly bought. Just calculate how much all that must have cost. It's all clear as day. Until the day you left home, it said that the $30 you gave me was actually an advance on your salary. The finance department at your workplace can verify the truth of this. The audience gasped in shock. Since the finance department didn't refute it, it must be true. I continued my accusation. Wade Shen, with my monthly salary of $35, $20 went to your mother's medical expenses. The remaining $15 had to support 2 children. And me, a pregnant woman. Do you even have a conscience? Wade Shen, looking utterly disheveled, finally lost all restraint and tried to pull me away. There's a misunderstanding here. Let's talk about it at home. Thea Chen, true to her cunning nature, still retained a shred of rationality even now. She sighed and said slowly, "Sister-in-law, you've been rejecting me from the moment I stepped into your home. I know you're jealous, but I truly had nowhere else to go and had to live under someone else's roof. I've been putting up with you for a long time." I broke free from Wade Shen's grasp and smiled bitterly. "I reject you. I held your hand to help you pull fabric for clothes, with other comrades' family members from our bureau accompanying us. One shouldn't be an ungrateful wretch. If it weren't for you and Wade Shen going too far, spending all the family's money, and even trying to take the child's milk for yourself later, I wouldn't have turned against you." The audience erupted in an uproar, voices clamoring all at once. Someone said, "This is a family matter, it shouldn't be brought up on stage." TCH, I've already said it, and now you remember. What's the damn use? More people chimed in. Who would have thought Engineering was like this? It's just too much. Others, eager to stir the pot, added, I was transferred here with Engineering. What this lady said is mostly true. As for family matters, we don't know the details. Another voice piped up. What's there not to know? Engineering treats Thea Chen like the apple of his eye here. Who does he think is fooling? Right after his speech, someone even suggested they get married. Wade Shen's face turned deathly pale as he opened his mouth to defend himself. I only wanted to help my comrades. Maybe I went too far in some places, but my intentions were good. He tried to portray himself as a misguided do-gooder, attempting to shift the focus. Thea Chen spoke up again. I did spend a bit of your family's money. That's because I was genuinely struggling when I first came to your home. But later, my ex-husband's family sent me money, so not everything should be counted as your family's charity. Her move was nothing short of cutting the ground from under their feet, but I have the natural advantage of being reborn. I had already investigated Thea Chen's background, so, a strange smile appeared on my face. That smile sent a shiver down Thea Chen's spine. I continued speaking at a leisurely pace. Wade Shen, when you brought Thea Chen back, you said it was out of consideration for your student Ju Jing, that Ju Jing had helped you greatly, and you wanted to repay him by taking care of his widow. Is that correct? Wade Shen finally regained some composure and replied, that was true then, and it's still true now. I gave a cold laugh. But I visited Ju Jing's home. Although his parents are both ill, they are still alive. Thea Chen's originally elegant face and composed demeanor finally cracked. I suddenly smiled, a smile that held a determination others couldn't comprehend. I delivered the fatal blow to them. I asked in a deep voice, but Ju Jing's parents never received any condolences from you. Do you repay Ju Jing selectively, only wanting to repay his wife alone? Ju Jing's face twisted in fury. Lola-san, stop making wild accusations. Another leader couldn't stand it anymore. It's just a family matter. There might be some misunderstanding. Go home and sort it out. Someone immediately came over to try and drag me off the stage. Thea Chen, as if unable to bear the humiliation, covered her face with a sob and was about to run off the stage. At that very moment, someone in the audience shouted at the leader who had just tried to smooth things over. Li Liren, You're the one who's been involved with other women outside, and now you're standing up to defend this scumbag. I'll fight you." With that, she too tried to rush onto the stage. Someone helped hold onto that older sister, Lirin, who was trying to smooth things over, shook his head and sighed, finally sitting down. I broke free from the person pulling at me and shouted at Thea Chen, who was about to leave the stage, "Stop! Why are you running? Feeling guilty?" Thea Chen indeed stopped. I shouted with all my strength, "Listen carefully, everyone. I went to Zhu Jing's hometown. His parents told me that their daughter-in-law, Thea Chen, once wrote a letter of complaint to his workplace when he was misunderstood, falsely accusing him out of thin air. Zhu Jing could have come home immediately, but it was her letter that nearly got him imprisoned and ultimately led to his death in detention." My words shocked everyone present. No one could remain calm anymore, and loud discussions erupted. Thea Chen weakly defended herself, saying, "You're lying." I delivered another heavy blow. Zhu Jing's parents also heard it from Zhu Jing's supervisor. "You can verify this matter at Zhu Jing's workplace." I helped the elderly couple repeatedly confirm it at Zhu Jing's workplace. I stand by what I said. As soon as I finished speaking, Thea Chen fainted. Wei Shen wanted to step forward to check on her but ultimately stopped in his tracks. I then asked Wei Shen, "The matter of the anonymous letter, I uncovered it as soon as I looked into it. How could you not know? Or did you already know and just let it slide because you like Thea Chen? Or even worse, framing your own student and trying to take his wife? Have you and Thea Chen been plotting this all along?" Wei Shen finally panicked. But before he could open his mouth to defend himself, I stepped forward and kicked him. By then, he was so weak that he immediately fell to the ground, finally covered in mud just like the rest of us. At this moment, Director Liu, the highest-ranking leader of the Exploration Bureau, stepped forward and said to me, "Comrade Sun, many of the things you've mentioned are well-reasoned, supported by evidence, and logically clear. However, given the gravity of the matter, we still need to verify further. Additionally, some of your speculations should not be voiced in public. Let's avoid amplifying any negative impact." Alright, I am already grateful that the leadership has tolerated me up to this point. If he had chosen to shield his subordinates, I wouldn't have had the chance to expose Wei Shen publicly, so I stepped down from the stage, feeling quite satisfied. Wei Shen and I were taken to the mediation room together. President Liu personally looked into the matter. He said to me, "Comrade Sun, I've heard of you, a very virtuous person. With things having escalated to this extent, what are your demands?" I calmly replied, "I request the organization's approval to dissolve my marital relationship with Wei Shen and to receive my rightful share of the family assets. I know Wei Shen's money has already been spent by Thea Chen, but he can advance his salary, regardless of his future position. His organizational affiliation will remain unchanged. This is something the Bureau should be able to accommodate." Director Liu nodded in agreement. I continued, "Wei Shen, in order to satisfy Thea Chen's material demands, could even neglect his own mother. Therefore, I demand custody of both children." With Wei Shen obligated to pay child support, the HR staff beside Manager Liu said, "When it comes to marriage and daily life, don't keep bringing up divorce. Look at how many people actually go through with it. In the end, most just make do." "Sis, you're taking things too far," I resolutely replied. "If even one person can get divorced, then I will too." Before Wei Shen came here, how unfairly he favored Thea Chen at home. "You've only heard fragments and don't know the full story." Wei Shen, who had been hanging his head low, suddenly looked up with a pleading expression. "Lola, I know I was wrong. I was deceived too. Please forgive me this time." I shook my head. "You weren't deceived. You were willing to be deceived. You like Thea Chen, which is why you were so easily misled. Besides, I'm still not sure whether you had a hand in framing Zhu Jing." Wei Shen suddenly became agitated. "Lola-san, do you really think so little of me in your eyes?" I nodded, "Yes. Even worse than that. So, I told my supervisor more about what happened after Thea Chen came to my house. I insisted on getting a divorce. At that time, Thea Chen had been living in my house for 3 months, yet she still acted like a guest, insisting on having eggs and milk for breakfast every day, just like the children. That morning, The eggs and milk in her bowl were gone. Thea Chen stared at the plain rice porridge before her, her eyes reddening. Wei Shen noticed immediately and slammed his bowl onto the table with a clang. Flushing with anger, he confronted me. Lola-san, is this how you treat a guest? I sighed and put down my bowl as well. You can't make bricks without straw, Wei Shen. I told you long ago that the household money is spent. There are no ration coupons left either, so we can't buy eggs anymore. Wei Shen's chest heaved with anger. I continued, when your father was alive, he set the rule that the good things in the house should go to the children first, eggs for the daughter, milk for the son. That has never changed. The grain ration for fine grains is limited. I've already exhausted every means to get white rice for Thea Chen. She gets white rice, you get sorghum mixed with white rice, and I can only have coarse buckwheat noodles. In one family, we have to prepare several different breakfasts. I have to get up at 5 in the morning to cook. If you still care about this family, show me some consideration too. Thea Chen covered her face and ran out crying. My well-intentioned words ended up making me seem like I was bullying her. Wei Shen glared at me angrily and chased after her. He pulled her back and pressed her down to sit in her original seat. On the weekend, the two children got up a bit late, had just finished washing up, and were now about to sit down for breakfast. Under the children's gaze, Wei Shen picked up his daughter's egg, peeled it, and gave half to Thea Chen. He then poured out half of his son Xiao Zhuang's milk and placed it in front of Thea Chen. With a reassuring smile, he said to Thea Chen, "It's fine. Go ahead and eat. I'm the one who calls the shots in this household." Thea Chen also responded with a charming smile before eating triumphantly, not forgetting to give me a provocative glance. The daughter, who had half her egg taken away, burst into tears. I had no time to investigate further and could only comfort the child first. My son also came to stand beside me, his eyes red and teary. That same day, I took the child and went back to my parents' home. Wei Shen came looking for me and repeatedly promised to send Thea away, so I went back home with him. But as soon as we got home, Wei Shen's expression changed. He shoved me hard, grumbling angrily, "Make a scene, make a scene. All you know is how to make a scene." "I've brought home a living ancestor," I retorted coldly. "The living ancestor is in the master bedroom. She gets guest standard treatment for food, clothes, and expenses. Yet she's taken over the house like the owner, strutting in like she belongs." Wei Shen's expression darkened briefly before he quickly regained his haughty demeanor. "I always knew you couldn't stand her. Turns out your so-called generosity was just an act," I said. "If my act of generosity already drained the family's money on her, what would real generosity look like? Selling myself into slavery?" Wei Shen waved his hand impatiently. "I won't argue with you. Housewives like you are especially good at quarreling." He paused and pretended to speak kindly to me. "If you want to solve the problem, there is a way. Just take back the $8 you give your mom for looking after the child. At home, our son Xiao Zhuang was already in kindergarten, and our daughter hadn't reached that age yet. My mom took care of her, and I gave her $8 every month. This was the common practice at the time." I sneered and said, "Go tell my mom that yourself." I added, "The neighbors are talking about you, knowing you're shameless, but not realizing it could reach this extent. I might as well tell them all about it." Wei Shen's face turned red. "What gossip are you spreading to those old ladies again?" I sneered. "Why don't they talk about me, then?" Wei Shen was left speechless. After catching his breath, he said, "I won't stoop to argue with you gossiping women." Then, calming himself, he added, "Actually, there's a way to solve the problem completely. You give your job to Thea Chen, stay home to look after the kids, and from then on, I won't have anything to do with her anymore. No more contact. How does that sound?" He wasn't unaware of how precious a job was in those days. I was stunned by his shameless words. He thought he had convinced me and pressed further. "Help others to the end. After all, I must ensure she can support herself. Aren't you bothered by our relationship? The solution is right in front of you. If you don't step aside now, don't stop me from helping others in the future." I took a deep breath. This job was my father's. He retired early, and that's how I took over. He waved his hand impatiently and said, "One must always make choices. Not everything will go your way." Just as we were in the midst of our argument, the transfer order came from above. Wei Shen was transferred to work in a big city and had to leave our small county town. He was an employee of the Exploration Bureau, working here in our town, and we met through an introduction. I was originally supposed to go with him, as the Exploration Bureau would naturally arrange a job for me. I just didn't expect that Wei Shen, taking advantage of our Cold War situation, unilaterally decided to take Thea Chen away. Before leaving, he said coldly and harshly to me, "It's easier to arrange work in a big city, so I'll take Thea Chen first. I'll come back for you later. You should reflect on yourself at home too," I said. "I'm pregnant. Don't you have any arrangements for me?" Wei Shen said coldly, "Now you know I'm your husband and want to rely on me. Aren't you so capable, talking about me behind my back with the neighbors? Why don't you ask them for help?" After saying that, he began packing his luggage on his own. Before leaving, I overheard him talking to Thea Chen, his words filled with longing and desire for the big city. They also talked about me. Wei Shen said, "Lola Sun is known for her hard work and endurance, but in the end, she's just destined for a life of toil, coming back to the big city with me. She doesn't have that kind of luck." The conversation paused, and after a long silence, Wei Shen added, as if trying to cover something up, "It's good for her to be alone and calm down for a while." What does "this is also good" mean? Wei Shen didn't say. I had a bad feeling back then that Wei Shen probably wouldn't bring me over. But now that I've been reborn, I don't care about reuniting with him. I just want to get the family assets and then go find my aunt. In a few years, their place will undergo stock reform, and all employees will receive original shares. There are workers who urgently need money at home and don't want the original shares, so I need to buy them back. In the second year, when the original shares go public, their price will increase more than tenfold. Anyway, if I don't buy them, someone else will. In my previous life, it was a few local thugs who ended up buying those shares. This time, it's my turn. I need this money as my first pot of gold. I almost choked up while describing my family's situation at the time. The personnel officer couldn't bear to listen any longer, his frown deepening. With a cold expression, he asked Wei Shen, "Engineer Shen, is it true that you proposed giving your wife's job to Thea Chen?" Seeing the situation turning unfavorable, Wei Shen flushed red and stammered. Director Liu also wore a grave expression. Wei Shen looked pleadingly and said, "Boss, I was just momentarily confused. I never intended to abandon my plain-looking wife." I sneered. "When did I become a plain-looking wife? I graduated from high school and worked as a pattern maker in a garment factory. A sixth-grade technician. If I hadn't been busy having children these past 2 years, I would have been promoted to deputy factory manager by now, with at least 2 more salary grades." Wei Shen's face turned even redder. I didn't mean it that way." The situation was turning in my favor when Li Liren, who had just been publicly exposed by his wife, walked in. He took a sip of water, glanced at Wei Shen. The two exchanged a look, and then Li Liren spoke up, "Comrade Sun, we know you've been wronged, but you should also be magnanimous and give your comrade a chance to correct their mistakes." My heart sank. Li Liren set down the water cup heavily, his voice cold and stern. "Not condemning comrades outright has always been our consistent approach. We understand your hardship, and the leadership will discuss it in a meeting." With that, he turned and left. Director Liu watched his departing figure and said to me, "Comrade Sun, Director Li is the deputy in charge of personnel matters, so we must take his opinion seriously, but we always strive for fairness in our work. You can rest assured." The personnel office staff nearby also gave me a meaningful look and added, "Sister Sun, the principle of marital freedom is clearly established. Your request won't be overlooked. Just wait a little longer. The unit will surely mediate the matter." Wei Shen looked left and right, his expression inscrutable, frowning. He said, "My feelings for Lola Sun are still there. She's just angry for the moment and will calm down once the anger subsides." Taking advantage of the moment when no one was paying attention, I stepped forward and slapped Wei Shen again, sending his face twisting to the side, his eyes swollen and red. He stared at me in disbelief. I spat in his face again. "Cheating on me, then coming home to bully your wife, and now that the wind's blowing against you, you want my forgiveness. Keep dreaming your damn fantasy. I'll never forgive you, not even if you die." Wei Shen's face was full of grievance, but he didn't dare to act out. Boss Liu told me. Boss Li's opinion is that we should continue mediation. No matter what, there won't be any result today, you'll have to wait a bit longer. Wei Shen said with a pitiful tone. Boss, I don't want a divorce. I sneered. You're afraid that once we divorce, your reputation for moral corruption will be confirmed. Let me make it clear, for every day you drag this out, I'll continue exposing you to our comrades. There are many more things I can't recall right now, but we'll take our time to sort them out. Wei Shen dropped his facade, glaring at me with a dark expression. I returned his venomous gaze and continued, just now. Director Li's wife also stepped forward. It's clear that Director Li and Wei Shen are birds of a feather. I refuse to accept such a leader making decisions. I'm going to the Women's Federation. Director Liu patted my shoulder reassuringly. Comrade Sun, don't rush, we'll give you an answer in a few days. As leaders, we don't want this matter to spread further and cause even worse repercussions. I'll talk to Director Li. That being said, as long as the divorce isn't finalized for a single day, my heart won't be at ease. I comforted myself, reminding myself to stay calm and composed, so that the situation could develop in a more favorable direction. Thinking this way, I suddenly remembered, the watch on Thea Chen's wrist was bought when Wei Shen took her shopping. I need to get it back. Thea Chen should still be at Wei Shen's house now. The Exploration Bureau has already arranged a job for her at a subordinate unit, and her personnel records must have been transferred over. Without an official letter of introduction from the unit, she can't go anywhere. At this thought, I quickly stood up and said, in that case, I'll go back and wait for news. The child might get scared if left alone for too long. I'll come back to your office tomorrow and wait right here. The HR officer barely suppressed a laugh. I took the child from the Women's Affairs officer, thanking her profusely. Then I followed Wei Shen home. The Women's Affairs officer, fearing a major incident, came along with us. On the way, Wei Shen tried several times to strike up a conversation with me, but I ignored him. However, one thing he said caught my attention. He had given the family apartment allocated by the company to Thea Chen and her son, while he himself lived in the company's dormitory. I thought to myself, good, this is the perfect opportunity to catch him off guard. Our group arrived at what Wei Shen called his home. As soon as the door opened, Thea Chen's son rushed over and threw himself into Wei Shen's arms, crying out, Daddy, I'm so scared, Mommy is crying really hard. Wei Shen sighed, glanced back at me, but didn't dare to speak. Upon entering the house, all the decorations were unfamiliar to me. Indeed, as Wei Shen had said, the big city was a place of comfort and luxury. Yet, he was unwilling to share it with me. We were married for 6 years, I was thrifty in managing the household, dutiful to my in-laws, and raised our children. I don't know where I failed him. In my past life, I really wanted to ask him, how could abandoning your wife and children be so easy? Now that things have come to this, standing in this place I once longed for but could never reach, I suddenly feel no desire to seek answers anymore. All I can think is, how much are these pieces of furniture worth? Then I dashed to Thea Chen in one swift move, snatched her watch, and stuffed it into my pocket. Thea Chen was crying pitifully, all the while stealing glances at Wei Shen's expression. Seizing the moment while she was distracted, I also took her brooch. Then I rushed to the wardrobe and took her coat along with a few well-made garments. Feigning embarrassment, I turned to the Women's Affairs officer and said, I agreed to provide her with food and drink, but I never consented to buying her expensive items. After all, these things were obtained through her deceitful schemes. So naturally, I'm taking them back. Then, with reddened eyes, I added further explanation. Money is tight at home. And I don't even have the next meal for the child figured out yet. I came here, and all Wei Shen did was arrange for me to stay at the guest house. He didn't even buy a meal for the child. The money spent on these things has squeezed our household budget. At home, both the child and I don't have enough to eat. I saw the Women's Affairs officer's eyes redden. She continued my thought. Take it, to give the child some extra nutrition. I think Engineer Shen would probably agree too. We all turned our heads in unison to look at Wei Shen, only to see his hand, which was about to rest on Thea Chen's shoulder, freeze mid-air. Thea Chen was crying like a delicate flower. pitiful to behold, sobbing as she said, "Brother Shen, I didn't slander Ju Jing, I just wanted to draw a clear line with him. I was so scared at the time, someone egged me on, my head was spinning, and I said mockingly with a smile, "Right, your head was spinning, so you got your own man killed. Then you ran off to another man, and that other man's head was spinning, so he abandoned his wife and child." The women's affairs officer joined in the laughter. I continued, "Seems like you're all prone to dizzy spells. What a perfect match." I stared blankly at the ceiling. This home was clean, convenient, affluent, and comfortable. It truly clashed with my image as one of the toiling masses. But human worth was never divided along such lines. I wasn't taught that way growing up. But it proves a person's capability. I don't covet these material things, but I hope I have the ability to obtain them. There's a big difference between not wanting something and not being able to get it. The women's affairs officer, fearing we might escalate the situation further, persuaded Wade Shen to return to the dormitory for the night and discuss the matter the next day. In the dead of night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Suddenly, it occurred to me that there must be someone else who couldn't sleep either. I decided to go and see her. I arrived at the guest house where Thea Chen was staying. Seeing me arrive, the arrogance Thea Chen had flaunted in front of me for over half a year finally deflated. Without ceremony, I sat down on the chair and got straight to the point. "There's still room for you to turn things around." She looked up at me in surprise, momentarily stunned. In her mind, she was the clever one, while I was always the one being played for a fool. She murmured hesitantly, "Would you really help me?" I dropped the act, stretching my legs casually and yawning before replying, "If it benefits me, I certainly don't mind doing you a favor." Then I smirked mockingly. After all, I don't have to lift a finger. You and Wade Shen are both headed downhill from now on. Thea Chen's face turned pale. I warned her, "If you just sit back and do nothing now, it's very likely that Wade Shen will make it ashore alone, while you'll be left in eternal damnation." Thea Chen's lips were dry and trembling. Unable to utter a word for a long time, I smiled with a sinister chill. "Just how far have you and Wade Shen gone?" She reacted defensively, saying, "We're innocent." I interrupted her. "Think again carefully." She froze, instinctively repeating, "Me, think carefully. About what?" I smiled without speaking. Early the next morning, I went to the reception office of the Exploration Bureau. Thea Chen, who arrived even earlier than I did, had already finished meeting with the leadership and was on her way out. We passed each other, both understanding the situation without a word. The leader sent out a secretary, who kindly told me to go back and wait for news, saying there was no need to talk today. I knew things were about to work out. One must still rely on oneself for salvation. I hurried to the private flea market and had vendors take away the furniture from home, along with Thea Chen's watch. Exchanging them for a few $100s in cash felt indescribably comforting. On the way back, I saw Wade Shen and Thea Chen standing in a small alley near the guest house, talking. I sneered inwardly. These two, who had originally shared a room without any regard for discretion, were finally showing some fear of gossip. I quietly crept closer, only to hear Wade Shen's voice filled with pain as he said, "What exactly did you say to the leader? Why have I been temporarily suspended?" Thea Chen, aggrieved yet restrained, replied, "I just told the truth. I said I like you, and that you worked so hard to help me, so you must like me too. What else could I have said?" Wade Shen's voice trembled. "What did you say? How could you say such shameless things to the leader?" Thea Chen burst into tears. "Brother Shen, wouldn't it be good for us to be together? I didn't mean to harm Ju Jing, who gets married with the intention of making their life worse. Everyone wants a better life." Wade Shen said, "You call this self-preservation? No, this is more like kicking someone when they're down. I don't dare live with you. Everything else is negotiable. But this, I'm afraid one day I might end up like Ju Jing, misunderstood, and you'd immediately." Thea Chen burst into tears. "Who hasn't made mistakes? Brother Shen, haven't you ever made a mistake?" Wade Shen asked in confusion. "What mistake have I made? My only fault is misjudging people." Thea Chen bit her lip and hesitated before saying, "But the organization says you've been promiscuous." Wade Shen grew even more puzzled. "What exactly did you report to the higher-ups?" Thea Chen repeated the same line. "Just told the truth." said you had feelings for me. What? Wei Shen was shocked. How could you say that? When did I ever? That time you were drunk, you kissed me, and then you even, Thea Chen said shyly yet bravely. Before she could finish speaking, Wei Shen covered her mouth with his hand. After releasing her, he couldn't wait to ask, "Did you tell the organization about this too?" Thea Chen nodded. "I didn't dare to deceive them." Wei Shen asked with a trembling voice, "Did you take the initiative to report to the organization?" Thea Chen shook her head. "They came to me." Wei Shen closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, he resignedly lowered his head. "The bureau finally approved my divorce from Wei Shen. All the terms were agreed to my conditions. With over 1,000 yuan in my pocket, I left this place. I see it crystal clear. Thea Chen definitely wouldn't have told the leadership just that little bit. Whether true or false, she would surely cement her relationship with Wei Shen, because that's exactly what I hinted to her that night. By saying this, she would tie herself firmly to Wei Shen. Wei Shen has completely become a morally corrupt individual, with his future in ruins. Keeping his current position would be a stroke of luck amidst misfortune. I don't want him to be demoted too much because he still needs to pay me high alimony. As for the mistakes Thea Chen made, naturally, others will hold her accountable. These are all matters for later. As for whether those two despicable people ended up together, it's none of my concern. I brought my child and parents to the city where my aunt lives, ready to make a fresh start here. I had already informed my aunt in advance, and she rented a place for me. Regarding work, my father pulled some strings to transfer my official position in the county town to a temporary job at my aunt's workplace. My father also felt that divorce was shameful, so he did everything he could to help me leave my hometown. You see, as long as you keep striving upward, there will always be someone willing to lend a hand. I once thought my father would be ashamed of me and not let me come home, but in reality, there are other ways to stay away from trouble. For the sake of their grandchild, the elderly still tolerated me. On another note, I showed them my bank book, and the amount of money in it surprised them. When I lost my formal employee status, I also showed them hope, that I could protect myself well. Food ration coupons were gradually being phased out, signaling that times were about to change. My parents finally stopped clinging to old ways. Their support was crucial. The timing of my rebirth wasn't ideal. I'd already given birth to a child. Without the care of my elderly parents, my future path would have been difficult. I was reborn after the abortion procedure. The doctor had scheduled a time for me to get an IUD, but I kept bleeding down there. One day after quarreling with my mother-in-law, I fainted by the roadside and had a long, vivid dream. The dream felt so real that I believe it must have been a glimpse of my past life. In the dream, Wei Shen indeed didn't come to pick me up, leaving me in a muddled state of confusion. I had to take care of my ill-tempered mother-in-law, enduring daily trivial arguments. Raising a child alone always consumed a great deal of my energy, and when the wave of layoffs hit, I was among the first to be let go. Life became destitute and desperate. During this time, Wei Shen, unburdened by children, was proactive and ambitious, climbing the ranks repeatedly. When he returned to visit family, he was surrounded by an entourage, with even county officials accompanying him. His car was parked at the entrance of the alley, and he walked home alone. On the way, he ran into me but pretended not to see. I was knocked down by the crowd, yet he merely paused for a moment without even offering a hand to help me up. At that moment, I thought, even a stranger, let alone someone important, would have come to help if they saw me fall. At the very least, they would have made a symbolic gesture. So, after this visit, I went to the city where he was and found his workplace. By then, Wei Shen had already established a strong foothold. Even when I sought help to denounce him for not providing household expenses, I was easily dismissed and sent back. I wasted my youth under Wei Shen's harsh treatment. It wasn't until we were past 40, with the progress of the times, that he finally divorced me and managed to leave me with nothing. Finally, I married Thea Chen in a grand and glorious ceremony. So, the first thing I did after being reborn was to expose the cheating couple, ensuring they would never rise again. As for the rest, it could wait a little longer. Once I achieve fame and success, I'll settle the accounts of both lifetimes together. My sister-in-law's workplace produces bearings, which doesn't align with my professional background. However, I was diligent and eager to learn, switching careers to start as a fitter, gaining hands-on experience in the factory. In the evenings, my parents helped take care of my child while I attended TV university, majoring in English. Through dedicated study, within a few years, my proficiency in English had become quite evident. The rumors about the factory's shareholding reform finally spread, and the workers were buzzing with discussions. Then one day, the other shoe finally dropped. The factory was going to distribute internal employee shares to every worker. Some struggling workers didn't want them, preferring cash instead. Others misunderstood, thinking their bonuses were being reduced and replaced with shares. Later, to quell the discussions, the factory agreed to allow everyone to resell their shares. I stepped forward and told the factory leaders, "If you can give me a permanent employee status, I'm willing to buy all the shares from everyone." Asking for permanent employee status was just a feint. My real goal was to buy the shares. I was a temporary worker. During less busy times, I would take leave to source goods from the south and set up stalls to sell trendy items. People always see me busy and restless, never settling down, and wonder what I'm after. Someone asked me, "Don't you want a stable life?" Of course I don't want a stable life. I've had too much stability in my past life. Steadily poor, steadily trapped in a marriage. What's so good about that? But I still replied kindly, "I have elderly parents and children to support. The burden is heavy." Thus, everyone sympathized with me and understood me. The leadership also turned a blind eye to my frequent leave requests. As a result, the money in my hands had long since multiplied several times over. I proposed to buy the shares that others didn't want, and it wasn't a small sum of money. Everyone knew I was doing business outside, but they didn't know I could save so much money. The crowd was astonished. At the right moment, I took out my divorce certificate with Wadeshan, which clearly stated the assets I was entitled to in the property division section. To solve the immediate problem, the factory management promised me that as soon as there was a formal job opening, it would definitely be given to me, and I successfully obtained the shares. At that time, there was no stock exchange yet, and the shares I held were paper certificates, with my name written in the holder endorsement section. I tucked the stock certificates into my pocket with great satisfaction. After spending some more time at the factory, some people began to envy me. Using interpersonal conflicts as an excuse, I left the factory. After running my business for another year, the Shanghai Stock Exchange finally opened. When the value of my stocks increased tenfold, I sold them all. Then I went to the Jiangsu-Zhejiang Shanghai region, and after a round of research, I started applying for a visa. It was at this moment that I realized the money in my hand wasn't enough to start a foreign trade business. I currently have 100,000 yuan, which is considered a huge sum in my hometown, but when it came to applying for a visa, I discovered that just the plane tickets alone would cost over 10,000 yuan. International trade isn't as easy as it seems, but I did see quite a few foreigners making purchases in the Jiangsu-Zhejiang region. I could sense that they were unsure of the ropes and were just fumbling around. Thus, I became even more determined to earn dollars. Doing foreign trade well can definitely lead to wealth and prosperity. Where to start? I thought of a simple approach. I leveraged my language advantage by holding up a sign at the arrival gate of Shanghai Airport, specifically welcoming foreign buyers. At first, I wasn't trusted, but I persisted day after day. Gradually, clients started coming to me. I brought foreign clients to the factory, and the manufacturer gave me a commission. Later, I established a foreign trade company. At that time, foreign trade companies also required qualifications and capital as guarantees, all of which I managed to obtain. The business was thriving. Looking back suddenly, I realized I hadn't used my past life memories for a long time. Getting to this point was entirely my own doing. A few more years passed, and I bought both an apartment and an office space in Shanghai. Life had already taken on a completely different landscape. The child support was issued to me by the labor union of Wadeshan's workplace, deducted directly from his salary. One time the alimony payment was late, so I called to remind him. "Actually, I don't really need the money. I just wanted to make Wadeshan uncomfortable." Little did I know, I would receive an important piece of information during that call. Back when I exposed Wade Shen's abuse of his wife and child, he never managed to get ahead in the Bureau of Exploration. Even though he was originally a technical backbone, colleagues would avoid him when they saw him, not to mention organizational promotions. Later, during personnel adjustments, he was demoted twice. After enduring this for several years, while he regressed, others progressed. The respectful title Engineer Shen people once called him was eventually replaced by Old Shen. Later on, the young newcomers stopped addressing him by his name and simply called him Hey. Wade Shen couldn't hold on any longer and applied for a transfer to a subsidiary of the Exploration Bureau. His status changed from that of a cadre to an employee of a public institution under an enterprise. A few more years passed, and the unit where Wade Shen worked faced poor operational performance, leading to restructuring and privatization, allowing private buyouts. I received the news and immediately took my child back to the city where Wade Shen was located. On the surface, it was because Grandma was critically ill, and the child needed to see her one last time. In reality, I planned to kill two birds with one stone. Not only could I purchase a factory at a reasonable price, but I could also become Wade Shen's boss. Why not take the opportunity? I pretended to come by chance and had a meeting with the upper management of the Exploration Bureau. They were all surprised to learn that I intended to buy out the factory where Wade Shen worked. Upon discovering that my rise over the years was entirely due to the inheritance I had taken from him, the leaders praised my capability, saying Wade Shen had no eye for talent. Wade Shen was the person in charge of that enterprise, and according to protocol, the buyout should have prioritized the original manager, but they couldn't resist the high price I offered. On the day of the power transfer, after many years, I saw Wade Shen again. His hair was disheveled, his face stiff, and his whole body exuded a sense of defeat. If I hadn't intervened, he would now be the private owner of this factory. The fall from great hopes is not an easy gap to accept. Seeing me arrive, he was visibly startled. Then, with a complicated expression, he looked at me and asked, "Lola, what brings you here?" His tone was weary, his face aged. A stark contrast to the glory of his triumphant return in the previous life. I smiled faintly. "I certainly didn't come back just to reminisce with you." Wade Shen had a momentary look of awkwardness before quickly regaining his composure. He replied calmly, "Lola, I made mistakes, but at the time, Thea Chen and I were truly innocent. And all these years, I've paid the price." Paid the price? You call this paying the price? What was my suffering under his torment in my past life? Living alone and miserable, supposed to mean? I let out a cold laugh, neither confirming nor denying. The leader of the Exploration Bureau said to Wade Shen, "Old Shen, who would have thought? The private boss who bought our factory is none other than Lola's son." For a moment, Wade Shen couldn't process it. At first, he even managed to smile, about to chime in out of habit. Suddenly, he came to his senses, his entire body as if frozen by a spell, unable to move a muscle, his mouth hung open wide. His breathing heavy, like a fish just hauled ashore, gasping desperately with each labored breath. The leader then sighed with emotion. "It's truly astonishing. That frail mother from back then has now become so successful." After collecting his thoughts, the leader continued, "Shake hands with the new leader. From now on, you won't be under my management, you'll be under hers." Then the leader teased with a laugh, "People often joke about being henpecked, but Old Shen, after all your twists and turns, it turns out you've ended up here." Wade Shen laughed awkwardly again and again, his lips twitching, his expression extremely unnatural. He stammered to me, Congratulations to you." I watched him suffer a crushing defeat with a half-smile. He hesitated before asking, "Where did you get the money?" The leader of the Exploration Bureau was happy for me and said mockingly to him, "The initial capital was the share of the family property you gave her, those 800 yuan. How about that? Quite capable, isn't she?" Wade Shen turned pale. I also said, "I should also thank our Exploration Bureau for upholding justice for me back then." The leader looked at me with a smile. "That's only right. We shouldn't wrong an innocent person, nor let a guilty one slip away." As if quite pleased with his own sense of humor, the leader laughed again. Wei Shen's pale face grew increasingly lifeless, inch by inch. In the end, he didn't forget the most important point. He asked the leader of the Exploration Bureau, "Where will my organizational affiliation be in the future?" Still with the Exploration Bureau, the leader smiled warmly like a spring breeze. But his words were icy cold. "Of course not. From now on, you'll be an employee of a private enterprise." Wei Shen staggered slightly, asking in disbelief, "How is that possible?" "I'm a state institution employee with a permanent position," the leader patiently explained. "Not anymore. Reform is reform. There's always some pain involved. Old Shen, you're a veteran employee. You should understand that work is work anywhere, and one can shine and contribute anywhere." Wei Shen's lips trembled, but no more words came out. After the leader left, I began to follow the established procedures and take over the work. One day, I heard that Li Liren from back then had also gone to work for a company and was facing restructuring. I quickly called my friend and asked him to come over to participate in the buyout. Thus, Li Liren repeated Wei Shen's mistake. Later, I had tasks related to employee relocation that required me to visit the Exploration Bureau, where I coincidentally ran into Li Liren. He was standing at the leader's door, cursing loudly. I was a cadre with an official position. Why am I now just a worker in a private company? Soon, he was taken away by the security department. As he passed by me, a pair of lifeless fish eyes stared at me intently. I sneered mockingly. This man, who had almost ruined my plans back then and seemed to hold some semblance of control over my fate, this seemingly formidable figure, had finally collapsed like a mountain. After completing the employee placement work for the company, I began targeting Wei Shen as my deputy. He assisted me in management, yet he was constantly rejected and suppressed by me. He held a position in the company that was dispensable. He repeatedly approached me with goodwill, only to be met with my icy rejections. He asked about my child, so I had Xiao Zhuang take our daughter to see him. In the end, our daughter brought an egg with her. In front of him, she split the egg in half. One half she threw to the ground and stomped on fiercely with her foot, while the other half she hurled at Wei Shen, coldly and furiously. She said, "If you like it so much, then eat your fill." Xiao Zhuang walked up to him and slapped him hard across the face, saying, "That's for my mom. I've wanted to do this for a long time." Wei Shen's head was knocked askew as he stared at Xiao Zhuang in disbelief. He defended himself. "All these years, I've been sending child support on time. It was your mother who asked for the divorce in the first place." Xiao Zhuang put on the airs of a young master. "Who cares about your dirty money? Now I earn more than that just by working as a translator. I only accepted it every month because I didn't want you to live too comfortably. After all, what's pocket change to me is still a burden for you. Why should I lighten your load?" Wei Shen's face turned ashen. Unable to stay any longer, he fled as if running for his life. It's said that in the end, he married Thea Chen after all. As this would minimize the negative impact, after marriage, Wei Shen was always the subject of gossip. Feeling that with Thea Chen by his side, he couldn't turn his life around, and coincidentally, his mother was often ill and needed care, so he sent Thea Chen back to live with his mother. The old lady was a difficult person to get along with, instinctively viewing her daughter-in-law as a natural enemy. "Thea Chen is the homewrecker who destroyed our marriage. And now the old lady has got her by the short hairs. She often spews insults like fox spirit and slut, resorting to physical and verbal abuse at the slightest provocation." Thea Chen lost her job and had no income, relying entirely on Wei Shen for support, so she had no choice but to endure the abuse in silence. Later, as Wei Shen's salary kept decreasing, Thea Chen could no longer bear the torment and hopelessness of such a life, and finally divorced him. At that time, she was already in her 40s, her best years had been wasted, and her reputation was ruined. She could only survive by doing odd jobs, but for her, this was still better than staying by Shen's mother's side. Not long after she left, the old lady passed away. Thea Chen found odd jobs too exhausting and still wanted Wei Shen to support her, but was harshly rejected. Back then, the son of Thea Chen, who pointed at me and called me a smelly country woman, was sent back by Thea Chen to live with his grandparents. That precious boy returned to a life of poverty and, as I heard, dropped out of school very early to drift through society. 3 years have passed, and the agreement I made with the Exploration Bureau, to not alter the original employees' positions or job types within 3 years, has expired. I had a talk with Wadeson. He trembles with fear whenever he sees me now. I put on the airs of a leader, pointing fingers at him and listing all his mistakes and shortcomings. Wadeson could only nod in agreement or cautiously offer a rebuttal. Later, I concluded, "You're not cut out for a management position. Do you have any technical skills?" Wadeson cautiously replied to me, "You know, I have surveying skills." I coldly responded, "That's useless here." Then, I pointed to the door and said, "The toilet cleaning position is available now. It suits you well. Are you willing to do it?" Wadeson resigned and left. His exploration skills had a very narrow range of applications, making life extremely difficult for him. He had done all kinds of hard and exhausting work. He was no longer the high-ranking leader or technical expert he once was. Thus, the downpour that had begun in my previous life and drenched the first half of my existence finally came to an end. After the rain cleared, I walked briskly along the road with a refreshed spirit.